Hello, my name is Lexi Harvey. I'm a graduate student at the University of Georgia in the Animal and Dairy Science Department. And today I will be giving a presentation on chicory. Its scientific name is Cichorium intybus, and its antiparasitic activity and potential role in the diets of cattle. So chicory is a broadleaf perennial herb. It produces a leafy forage and yields nutritive values like alfalfa or other cool season grasses. So it has also a very lower fiber content, which makes it more digestible for ruminants, and its overall chemical composition is better than some types of grass forages. So it's also a bioactive plant. All this means is that it possesses plant secondary metabolites, and those are things like condensed tannins or sesquiterpene lactones that have been discovered to have health benefits to humans and animals. It's a multi-use plant, but its benefits to livestock are primarily in its roots and its leaves. And meaning benefits is that the content of condensed tannins and sesquiterpene lactones are primarily in the roots and the leaves of chicory. So this is just a figure I wanted to incorporate. I personally hadn't ever seen chicory grown or what it is or what it looked like. So I obtained this figure from a research article, and this is just showing the different parts that are usable of the plant. So A being the seeds, B being a flower, C being the roots, D being roasted roots, and E being the chicory field. So why would we use chicory in animal agriculture? Like I said before, I told you what it is. It typically has these things called plant secondary metabolites, like condensed tannins or sesquiterpene lactones. So what do those do, and why are they beneficial in animal agriculture? So across the world, there's been a phenomenon of anthelmintic resistance. And basically anthelmintic is the synthetic drug that is in worming medicines for livestock. And it's a growing issue, and chicory actually might be able to decrease the use of anthelmintics, or at some point potentially be an alternative to anthelmintics in the livestock industry. So it's because chicory has direct and indirect antiparasitic effects that have been studied in cattle, only primarily regarding the abomasal nematode Ostergia ostargi. So basically what it does is from the condensed tannins and sesquiterpene lactones in the chicory's leaves and roots, it can actually decrease motility of these nematodes. So that obviously decreases the overall ability of the nematodes to be able to reproduce. So again, it's been shown to be successful in reducing fecal egg counts of Ostergia ostargi because of its direct antiparasitic effects from its sesquiterpene lactone content. So chicory actually has a very low level of condensed tannins, and this is also a reason that it could be beneficial in the livestock industry, because there's been previous research that's been done on high levels of condensed tannins being actually adverse, having adverse effects in livestock. So this actually could be an alternative because of the low levels of condensed tannins. It still might have some of the anti-parasitic effects from that, but its main anti-parasitic effects comes from its content of sesquiterpene lactones. So it's been shown to have no adverse health effects to the animal, like supplementing high levels of condensed tannins. So this is just a figure over here to the right of basically what anthelmintic resistance is, how it comes about. So it's basically showing, on the left-hand side of the figure, it's showing that you have more non-resistant worms and less resistant worms. After treatment, you potentially can develop where the non-resistant worms are killed by the wormer, but the resistant worms are not, and they reproduce. And after each cycle of this, it increases the volume of resistant worms that are present within the animal. So there has not been as much research in cattle as there has been in other small ruminants, but out of a research article that I've included, this is a figure or multiple figures that are basically showing the dose response curves obtained in adult motility inhibition assays with Asterigea ostargi. And so this is basically saying A is the 6 hour after post, like after treatment, and then B would be 24 hours and C would be 48 hours. So this is also showing the different concentration of the sesquiterpene lactone containing extracts from 2 chicory cultivars. So this is essentially showing that, as you increase the dry extract in the media, the percent worm motility decreases significantly. And the Spadona and the Puna 2 is essentially 2 cultivars of chicory. So is it worth it? Is chicory being a forage or being a supplement worth what our typical regimen is? So regardless of chicory's antiparasitic activity, it's a highly digestible forage. I've included 2 figures here from 2 different research articles. Basically, the first one comparing it to ryegrass on a dry matter, protein, soluble sugars and starch, fiber and digestibility, and metabolizable energy basis. And it wins almost in all of them. You can look at it further. But also in the bottom figure, it shows the chemical composition of chicory as a silage versus ryegrass or clover hay. And so all in all, it's a highly digestible forage that has, higher quality nutrients in it. So if supplementing chicory as a silage, there is also more nutritional benefits when compared to your typical grass forage type, but still giving the animal the fiber while being still very digestible. So it's a good option, for a forage or for a supplement, regardless of its anti-parasitic effects. So if it's worth it, is it feasible or is it able to be done in the US? Because we don't. And why, and what's the reason of why we don't versus doing our typical grass type forages? So chicory has been primarily researched in New Zealand. So there has been a seed, forage type seed that's been created off of a commercial seed line in New Zealand, and it's called Grasslands Puna 2 Chicory. So same scientific name, Cichorium intybus. So it basically is a forage that does well in warm, dry climates, which sometimes in the US we do have wetter seasons. So but this forage has been studied to do very well in warm, dry climates, specifically through the spring and autumn seasons. However, it may die out only a year or 2 under frequent grazing and wet conditions. So it could be a good option and it could be grown in the US. However, it would mainly be better suited for temperate regions in the US. So it shows a good promise to be a good perennial warm season forage. But typical harvest of it, just because, this plant is actually only growing at, half of what essentially a fescue hayfield would grow, just height wise. So yield wise, it's going to be less than like a grass forage. However, if you're doing it for grazing, which is kind of what research has shown to be used for, then there could be a potential for it to be a really good grazing forage. There has been some research that has crossed like just doing a mix like of ryegrass and chicory fields for hay. And there has been promising research done with that with yield and quality wise. But it's typically made for grazing harvest. So I've included the link. This is actually a picture from their website, and this is the actual company that produced this Grasslands Puna 2 chicory. So if you want more information or even buying options for the seed, you can visit that website. So there's a lot that hasn't been done yet in cattle research regarding using chicory and, basically getting the benefits of its anti-parasitic effects. It's been shown that chicory can be a forage. It might not be as useful like in the US as it is in, New Zealand, where they've grown it and they've done grazing studies on it, just because of we don't grow it typically, so we don't know how successful it could be. So further research needs to be done. I think this is a very interesting topic, because I do think that there has been this phenomenon of anthelmintic resistance going on for a long time now, and it's only getting worse. I personally know cattle farmers that worm their herds every 30 days for no real reason at all, just under the assumption of weight gain versus, not worming them as much. So I think that if we could, as an industry, get to where we research chicory some more, and these are some of the questions I'm going to go over, I think that it could be a beneficial alternative to worming cattle every 30 days. So here's some questions that need to be answered before grazing or supplementing chicory can become a successful alternative to anthelmintics. So first and foremost, can we grow chicory successfully in the US? Like, it has been grown, obviously, but on a wide scale, like, for producers to actually seed it and grow it, can we do that? Is it able to thrive in our climate in different regions in the US? So 2, what are the price difference in buying grassland Q2 chicory seed versus other commonly used forage seed in the US is, the second question. Can it be easily accessible? If this is, like the company I showed you on the last slide, obviously we would have to import from. So can it be easily accessible for cattle producers to go to their local feed store and buy this type of seed? Does grazing your cattle on chicory have enough of an anti-parasitic effect to warrant seeding it instead of another forage? Like, basically exactly what it says. Is it worth it? What effect does grazing your cattle on chicory have on the total parasite population in the animal? So this is where these questions get into, like, we need to have actual experiments done to look at the particular effects of grazing chicory on the worm or parasite population in the animal. There has been to date not many, and the one that I've included in the presentation studies the specific abomasal nematode Aspergilla ostargi, which is only one, very minimal percentage of the parasite population that affects our animals. So we should find out those total effects on the parasite population. So another one, what effect does grazing your cattle on chicory have on the resistant parasite populations within the animal? So, we know that we have anthelmintics that have we've been administering, and we've had populations of parasites develop resistance to. So could essentially, if we were to graze chicory or supplement chicory, could this be, a way to target those resistant parasite populations? So another one, could chicory be a supplement that is an alternative to administering anthelmintics? So again, chicory has multiple uses of the plants, just like we talked about. It has those plant secondary metabolites within the roots and within the leaves. So if it could be, mainstreamed as a supplement instead of a forage, what effects does that have on the animal and the parasite population? So like, if we find that it does have an effect, could this potentially be an alternative to administering anthelmintics? And so which option, because if we have multiple, and this is the main question, which option, administering anthelmintics, grazing chicory, or supplementing chicory, is going to be most cost effective for producers? That is end all be all. What is going to be most cost effective and allow cattle producers to keep efficiency within their operations? So here are my references. I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you so much for listening.